Here we go.
Okay, I guess we're back to order here. City Attorney, can you tell us where we're at tonight?
So you have wiped the slate clean, and you are back to picking which family, 1, 2, or 3.
One or two.
One or two? Or I believe it was one or.
No, we're back to the beginning.
And one person at a time, please.
I'd go back to the beginning, just
Okay.
if you wanna narrow it down again, I would just, because I'm not tracking who is on which prevailing side of which vote anymore.
For simplicity purposes, I'll make a motion that we go back to 2. I'm sorry, so was it 3 and 1? Or I'm sorry, 1 and 2? I'm sorry. So my motion would be that we go back to where we were when this all went apart, which is putting 1 and 2 back in it and 3 out.
I second.
Councilmember Forbes,
Aye.
We're voting for number 3, is that what?
No, you're
Just
voting
putting 1 and
to
3
narrow
back
it
in.
to 1 and 2.
Just
One
narrowing
and
it down.
2,
I'm
you
sorry,
just
1 and
said.
2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2.
You just said 1 and 2.
We're narrowing it back down to 1 and 2.
We were with Derek, we were beginning clear slate.
You got it, yes. 1 and 2.
Jesse then said 1 or 2.
Yes. That was seconded.
So Mayor,
Mayor, I'll turn it. Mayor, we are excluding number 3 and picking between 1 and 2. So you're voting just to limit the options to number 1 and number 2. That's the vote right now.
Councilmember Forbes,
Yes.
Councilmember Bogus,
yes.
Councilmember Purdon,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
No,
Mayor Steinmeier,
No.
Councilmember Corey,
Yes.
Councilmember Fullick.
Aye.
Okay, so now we're
Passes.
down to 1 or 2.
correct.
Okay, do I have a motion for number 1?
Motion for number 1.
Second.
Vote on number 1.
Councilmember Bogus.
Aye.
Councilmember Purdon,
Aye.
Councilmember Carr,
No,
Mayor Steinmeier,
Aye.
Councilmember Corey,
Aye.
Councilmember Fullick,
Aye.
Councilmember Forbes.
Okay, 1 is 1.
All right.
So, the rusty nail ones.
I think we heard loud and clear, council, that you would like a maintenance plan, you like materials that are cost efficient and effective, and if there's ways to implement less metal or corrugated or plastics, we'll do, as long as the design is attractive and efficient, that's the direction we've heard.
Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Kevin.
Okay, where the hell am I now?
Your next item, Mayor and Council, is to approve the design bill proposal from Wright Construction. Additionally, there is a budget transfer. I'll let Matt, can you present that item?
Excuse me, sorry, I was just eating some cupcake.
Party on.
So, back in September, after some presentations that had happened in August, council asked us to look at engaging one of our design builders that we have on a library of contractors for those types of services to price out constructing the parking expansion as shown, I believe it was in DPZ's option 2 that had been presented earlier that summer. So we did engage them at the time. We chose Wright Construction. They're on our list. The reason primarily is because that's who constructed our downtown. So they have most familiar with the materials and the construction that went on down there. And this would essentially just be an expansion of it. So we asked them to price out the work really back in, I believe, September. But they've been working on how you would tackle that and have provided a proposal to do so in the amount of $982,000, $195.04. And so if you want to proceed with the expansion of that parking, we would recommend that at the time, the sentiment was, what is the quickest way to deliver this work? It would be through a design build contract on a pre-existing contract, and that's what this proposal is.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I do want to point out that it does include a budget transfer from the unassigned fund balance of, I believe, around $400,000 to make the funding whole.
And that includes any utility work and tree removal, everything. That's the whole 9 yards.
That's what it takes.
Not to exceed or just whatever.
It's a guaranteed maximum price, and it includes the work as shown.
Matt, didn't it exclude the environmental?
Yes.
Any idea what that would be?
Well, I don't think, that's an exclusion you would run into for things that are unknowns. So, for example, when we did the downtown project back in 2015, when it started, the very first thing we ran into were, I think it ultimately was 12 underground fuel tanks that had predated the Environmental Protection Agency regulation to register them. So there was no reasonable expectation to know they were there. We mitigated it pretty quickly, but that would be something that type of exclusion would address.
Thank you.
Okay, we have motion and a second. We have a vote, please.
Councilmember Purdon,
Aye.
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier,
Aye.
Councilmember Corey,
Aye.
Councilmember Fullick,
Aye.
Councilmember Forbes,
Aye.
Councilmember Bogus.
Aye.
Okay, now we go to council report. I'm going to give a report real quick here.
We got the hurricane.
Sorry, I just want to give a brief update on the Hurricane Ian recovery. The mayor and myself received notice from FEMA that we are continuing to move forward. If you remember, we asked for a $5 million advance on the debris removal. That is continuing to move forward. It's a little less than 5 million. It's about 4.9. We're in the final steps of that, so we're hopeful to receive that funding very soon. And once we do, we'll send out that notice. So we're continuing to participate with Lee County in the LMS process. And we are also continuing to update with Senator Martin's office as well as Representative Botana. All of our legislative asks, there's some additional information. We'll probably be issuing some one-page summaries of each of those requests as well. We'll copy you on those when those go out in the future.
Okay, did I walk over top of you again?
That's
You have anything else?
Matt's got one other.
I do have one thing I want to point out. On Tuesday, March 7th, from 5:30 to 6:30 at the Bonita Springs Fire Department station out off of Bonita Grand, I believe, was that station 4? There'll be a public meeting that I'll be participating in along with Barron Collier Companies, and it's to essentially notify the neighborhood that the drainage portion of the golf course project will be beginning, and just kind of providing some points of contact and really letting the folks know that this is getting ready to start in earnest.
What time?
5:30 to 6:30, March 7th. And as I pointed out, it's really just an informational meeting to let folks know, construction's starting in your backyards here, and we'll, the scale and magnitude as well.
Sounds good. Okay. We got council member reports. I've got a report. I've gotten some letters. There's a small percentage of people that have a problem gambling. And I have a phone number. If you admit that you have a problem with your gambling, it can affect your family and everything else. The number is 888-236-4848, and it could also be called 888-ADMIT-IT. It's for people with gambling problems. I did my duty. Now, Chris Corey was busy with the county, and he's going to report for us. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. If you'll remember, in December, you asked me to attend the Lee County Recovery Task Force meeting. It's taken some time for that task force to organize itself. What has happened in the interim is that the Lee County Commission has appointed Kevin Ruane, Commissioner Ruane, as the chairman of the task force. And they have also contracted with the Collaboratory, which is in Fort Myers, used to be called the Southwest Florida Community Foundation. That organization does regional planning. And they have contracted with Haggerty Consulting, which is a disaster recovery consulting firm. The task force met for the first time Monday morning, and it has two major goals. The first major goal is to plan for hurricane recovery from Hurricane Ian on a regional basis, which primarily means on a countywide basis, but can include also portions or part of the recovery plans of Collier County and Charlotte County, just for basically Southwest Florida. So that's point one. The second objective is to work on resiliency projects such that if we have a similar hurricane in the future, the damages are much less than what we incurred last September. So those are the two major goals. This has been pursued as a result of a legislative request from the Florida legislature. And this task force is in response to that. It's being set up in a manner similar to the MPO and to the TDC, which is a Tourist Development Council. And the carrot for doing this is that we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to access state grants and federal grants. And the granting authorities only want to deal with grants on a regional basis. So if we're going to be able to pursue grants for our needs, we need to have a seat at the table. Now, the table includes, in terms of the task force, the mayor of Cape Coral, the mayor of Estero, the mayor of Fort Myers, the mayor of Fort Myers Beach, and the mayor of the city of Sanibel. Law enforcement is represented by Under Sheriff John Holloway. The fire agency is represented by Robert DeLallo, who's the fire chief. The Lee County School Board is represented by its chairman, Armour Pearsons. Lee Health is represented by board member David Collins. The legislative delegation is represented by Gina Persons Mulika. And the constitutional office is represented by Matt Caldwell. So those are the members of the task force. The task force is charged with providing the following benefits to municipalities and other affected governmental organizations in Lee County: to provide a unified voice for advocating for our shared interests, and most importantly, to increase our competitiveness on a regional disaster recovery grant basis through collaborative multi-jurisdictional planning. So that's basically what this is all about. Again, the message is grants are going to be given on a regional basis, and if you want to access that grant money, then municipalities will work with the task force to identify the needs of the municipality and to put them together with the needs of other communities in Lee County. And that will be what drives the grant applications. And the grant applications will go forward from there. Now, the areas that they will focus on are in line with the Federal Disaster Recovery Program. So there will be a focus on infrastructure, which includes roads, cell tower coverage, internet services, communications during the course of a hurricane, so forth. Economic recovery, how do businesses recover? How do we keep our cities competitive for new businesses and expansion of existing businesses? Housing, one of the key areas of the whole effort is affordable housing. How do we continue to staff our schools, our libraries, our hospitals with people that have to live a long distance away because that's the only place they can afford to live? We actually, as the representative from the school district testified, we actually have teachers in Lee County living in their cars and going into the schools and teaching because they cannot find affordable housing anywhere within a reasonable up to an hour and a half commute. Education and workforce, how do we improve the access to higher education or technical education or credentialing for our workforce? How do we deal with the hurricane if we have another one in terms of keeping our schools open so the kids aren't out of school for as long as they were this time? How do we protect our natural resources? How do we deal with our beaches, the quality of our water, avoiding pollution of our water through surges in the future? Health and social services, what do we do to better improve the evacuation of people in hospitals and nursing homes and memory care units in the event of a future hurricane? And cultural resources, how do we protect what we consider to be our arts in terms of going forward as a result of a hurricane in the future? These areas are all part of the National Disaster Recovery Plan put out by the federal government. These areas will be staffed with committees, and there will be a maximum of 10 people on a committee. The nominations have to be in. Now, hold on to your seats. Nominations have to be in by 5 o'clock tomorrow night. Nominations are already flowing in. But first of all, I just want to, I think it's important, I don't want to get hung up on this nomination process because we do need to talk about that. But I recommend that we continue having our seat at the table, listening to what's going on, making sure that the needs of South Lee County are taken into account, and that we have an opportunity to get our share of the apple when those grant requests are put in. Yes?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
Okay, so, Chris, I 100%, like, how you came into this was not even on your own accord. You know, this was back when the chairman of this committee said he called the mayor, didn't call the mayor, got you there, and that started the whole thing back and forth. So you volunteered and you went and you got us the info. I read the info and I agree that you gave a very accurate synopsis of what was told to you. I'll say working intimately with the storm recovery on a federal level and with the counties and with the cities on a personal level, that I'm just going to be completely transparent. This is a committee that has the power to give a recommendation to the county commission. We have the power to do that as a city. You have the power to do that as an individual. And grants are still coming, and I'll tell you that what Arlene was alluding to earlier, we got almost $5 million on Friday that's coming from FEMA via a grant, and the county got almost $1 billion last Friday coming via a grant. So the idea that if we don't participate, it's very reminiscent of when the same person sold us on the water pack, which I then went and sold us on, that if we didn't get in, we were gonna lose our seat at the table, so we better hurry up and do it. So then we went and did it, and that organization has done nothing since. It's like the MPO, and to me, my only concern, it's not that I don't want us there. My issue is that we have a limited staff capacity. And now if we have 8 committees, you tell me this, what subcommittee of the city would ever have, or what committee of the city would ever have 8 subcommittees? And of the subcommittees, what of substance would actually come from those? Okay, these meetings are supposed to go till the end of the year. So they're already scheduled till the end of the year. So not only they're already scheduled to the end of the year, it's gonna be for 8 different things. They're all gonna have to be noticed meetings. And then we're gonna be picking citizens to send. And we're gonna be like, oh, you guys are gonna have a part in recovering, Southwest Florida from the storm. And we send them on this mission to go do that. And then they're gonna be in a meeting, which really is just an inefficient waste of everybody's time. Because at the end of the day, the people running Point on Recovery are the city managers, like Arlene and Matt, and like Roger over at the county. It's not a subcommittee of the county. This is a multi-countied storm. And again, I mean, this is a scenario where we could spin our wheels all day sending people to all these meetings, but as far as any authority, any teeth, or any negative from not being involved, really lending our voice to a regional ask for money may potentially put us in a worse spot than if we asked for it individually. Because if we're going into it with Sanibel and Fort Myers Beach, we're completely decimated, and we ask for, $10 million, how are we gonna split that pie up? So, and it's gonna be a different consideration than if we do it on our own. So again, the idea that grants are gonna go away from us as a city in this disaster because we aren't part of this coalition, which is a subcommittee that can make recommendations, is patently false, and they should have never said that because it's not true. Additionally, they have zero authority, and frankly, them to give us the idea that we have to give them names by tomorrow. First of all, we asked questions to them on what the ROI for us even doing this was that were yet to be answered. So then to say, okay, yes, you're involved, and give us your people next, tomorrow, I don't think that's appropriate. Furthermore, it should be the county commission as a whole who votes on that, and they send something to Arlene, and they ask us, hey, the county as a whole is asking you as a city to put this together. Not a chairman of a subcommittee saying now to all the cities, you guys go put all your lists together and then send it in, and then they're gonna vote on it at the meeting this week. They haven't even voted on it as a commission yet. So he's asking us to do it, and they haven't even approved it as a commission. So it's like, it's not appropriate yet.
Well, wait a minute, time out. They have voted to approve Commissioner Ruane as the chairman.
Yes,
They have approved the money to fund the consultants.
yes.
They are picking up the dollars for this effort. The commission is voting on the committee members, okay?
Right.
At their meeting on Tuesday.
Right.
So Ruane's charge is being directed by the county commission. So the county commission vote is 100% in support of the task force. It's, so let me just be clear.
Well, no, they support, I'm not saying they don't support the task force. What I'm saying is for them to ask us to put people on a committee for 8 areas that are supposedly these important things, to give us 24 hours notice and say, hey, here's the person that you're gonna put that's in charge of water. This is the person who's in charge of transportation for a 60,000 person city. It's not appropriate, and it's not the appropriate body to ask us. It needs to be the county as a whole. They've yet to vote on it, and quite frankly, they started this thing out inappropriately anyways. So from the onset, it's been inappropriate. So to this juncture, until they get to the point where they're asking us from the right entity, I think it's inappropriate for us to jump in bed with them, because us getting part of a regional approach, is that beneficial to us or not? Because they aren't the ones who turn the keys for grant dollars. That $5 million we got on Friday had nothing to do with this subcommittee, nothing. So, I mean, let's not buy into this idea just like we did with the water pack, because look, I'll admit it, the water pack died. Guess who brought it back? Me. Because I thought we as a city were gonna be in a bad spot if we didn't do it. And I didn't want to do that to us. So I got it, I rallied, I brought the same person who's running this committee to the meeting, and he got us all to change our mind, and we voted that way. I went down that road once. I'm not necessarily ready to put the city down that road again if there is not an ROI. And it's not that I don't want to send citizens to be there, it's that, frankly, I think the staff time for duplicative efforts and efforts that might potentially undermine the amount of money we might get by putting it in a basket with everybody else may not be the best direction for us.
Just a question,
No,
if
I
I may, please. So, Chris, if if we don't provide this list of people, does that mean we don't have a seat at the table, or can you still be there and we just don't?
We can-
Because I agree with Jesse about where are we gonna find that many people that are qualified to be on these committees, number one, not that we don't have great citizens, but I would expect that to take 30 days at the very least. So can Chris just continue to represent us? And maybe,
I have no problem with that.
as a counselor, that we can't provide that many people.
Well, I agree. I mean, I know that there are nominations coming in, but I also know that there are cities that are represented on the task force that are having the same problem. Because, for one thing, Arlene and I have talked about it. Whoever I would choose to nominate would have to have been approved by council. You know, I can't go out and ask Kyle Moran, here, Kyle, would you serve on the Economic Development Committee? It would have to come before council, and it would have to be approved. So I don't know any way to meet the 5 o'clock deadline anyway. So what I'm suggesting, and then there's no guarantee that we would have a representative anyway, because what's going to end up happening, I think, is that the cities and the entities represented on the task force are going to put up multiple people, and there's going to be some sort of cut down process to get down to 10. So my recommendation would be that, you know, we sort of ignore this, see if this phase of it collapses at its own rate and there's a more reasonable request put out. But I think we still need to have a seat at the table just to see what's going on, because, you know, we have to rely, I think, a little bit on the county commission having some horse sense in this whole thing about how this thing is going to
At
work.
least a majority of them.
Right. Well, and I mean, think that water is one of them. We have a water pact that's supposedly supposed to deal with all this stuff. So it's
Well, but, you know, but
Okay, Chris, could you continue to monitor this for us?
I will.
We don't need a motion for that, right?
no. But I would ask you know, maybe we as a city send something over to the county and say, you know, if the commissioners decide that they're going to ask the municipalities to put together, could you send us what those credentials are and what the time period is, because one day is not acceptable
Well,
for us.
what I would suggest that we do is invite Kevin Wayne to our next council meeting,
I don't know if that's.
or
I
to give the council a better sense of what this is all about. But
we can discuss that.
I've had experience with that commissioner before, and he's controlling 100 people all of a sudden. Where's the home rule? We're a city because the county mistreated us, and now they're just gonna take over everything. In between the county government and the federal government, we might as well just fold up and go home.
But I do think it's necessary, Mayor, that we at least participate to see what interests that we need to protect.
Would you do that for us?
I think monitoring it is great. I think us not sending somebody will also give them the appropriate message that we're going to watch it, but we necessarily as a city aren't going to buy in until we see if this is going to actually have an ROI. And if it's a exercise in futility, we're going to bail, cut bait.
Well, then, my report is complete and we can go on, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize, but I have a second quick request. The Technology Advisory Board is working on aspects of the cell towers and is preparing to draft an ordinance for the council to consider. They are also making progress in increasing the number of electronic vehicle charging stations in the city, and they have requested that I ask the council to allow them to continue to meet on a monthly basis. I know that we have I don't know if it's a dictum in place or whatever, that our committees are supposed to meet quarterly, but the Technology Advisory Committee would like to be allowed to meet monthly in order to help with the staffing needs for the committee to meet. The committee itself is willing to take and record its own minutes according to Robert's Rules of Order, and to provide those minutes to staff, so that somebody on staff doesn't have to listen to the recording, the committee minutes, or the committee meeting, and synthesize it down to a set of minutes for posting. So, but the primary request, yeah.
The liaison from staff for your committee is,
Well, right now it's Laura Taylor.
and she's okay with that?
So just to clarify that during, before Councilmember Fuller came on and Councilmember Bogues, in the midst of the storm, we did have a directive from council, I think it was Councilmember Gibson and Deputy Mayor at the time, that only committees that dealing with a specific land use request meet regularly. The rest to move quarterly just because of staff's resources at the time. I think if you would make that motion to do the monthly meetings, that we make it specific to just this board, so that, because then it's going to
Not essential.
snowflake into all of the rest of the boards wanting the same criteria, and maybe it could be ending once these items are addressed, then they can go back to the regular schedule.
They're perfectly willing to do that, once these things are all addressed.
I would also suggest that we not include in part of the minutes. We do have administrative procedures for how the minutes are done for each of them, so to be consistent with that, we probably should
Okay,
keep
well,
that.
I'll just make a motion that the Technology Advisory Board be allowed to meet monthly.
Second.
Just before we vote on that, because this item wasn't as an action item and it wasn't on the agenda, if there's any public comment on this item, seeing none, go ahead.
Okay, you have a vote, please.
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier,
Aye.
Councilmember Corey,
Aye.
Councilmember Follick,
Aye.
Councilmember Forbes,
Aye.
Councilmember Bogues,
Aye.
Councilmember Purdon.
Very good.
I have one more thing.
Yeah, it'd be-
Hey, he's never done this, so I'm okay. It's okay. I don't think he's ever actually done this, so okay.
It will be very quick. The MPO meeting is following our next council meeting. And I know Laura has a different view of the Trails to Rails project than a consensus of the council. And I
You
don't-
have no idea what, because I've never expressed it. but-
You expressed it fairly well at the council meeting, last council meeting I was at. All I'm suggesting is if representing the consensus of the council would make you feel uncomfortable because of a personal view, then I just suggest somebody else cover that MPO meeting.
And if I may,
Fred is the other MPO representative.
There's two voting members.
Yes, and we are the two who have been elected, and
just for the new folks, just for the reason that this is probably coming up, and it has nothing to do with Laura at all. It historically, just for those of you who weren't here, last iteration of MPO argumentation that we had, MPO was the body that was doing the study associated with Bonita Beach Road and 41. So we ended up going back and forth, almost went down the road of doing a flyover there, and we killed it at the very last minute so that we didn't get a flyover on Beach Road and 41. Now,
Right.
well, okay, so point being of the story is this. There were two members of the council, and I'm not even going to get into who they were. The names are irrelevant at this point. But there's two members of the council who did not feel the same way as the majority of the council. Those happened to be the two people who are the MPO members. Those people then went to the MPO and expressed their opinion, not the majority of the council. That created a huge problem for us as a city, not only with the board, but us as individuals. So, as to not put you in that position, I would recommend that if you felt that your position is you don't feel strongly enough to go advocate for it boisterously on our behalf, that maybe you let somebody else do that.
So I don't.
Like Fred, he's gonna be there anyway, so Fred can
That's-
speak for
that-
Bonita.
there's no swapping out of no members.
No, she just doesn't,
Exactly.
no, I'm not saying she goes away, I'm saying she doesn't have,
She can appoint an alternate.
or she could appoint an alternate. But I'm saying is she can't go up there and poo-poo it. Well, the voice of the council is that we are in support of it. Not that you would, but I'm saying the voice of this board is that we are in support of it. So if you can't carry that message, or you don't want to carry that message, you shouldn't have to.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, so we're talking about this project called Rails to Trails. It's done through the MPO.
Yes.
You're one of the two people
And the
who.
funding
I-
is
I-
where,
I-
and the
I- I-
funding is
Nothing,
where.
nothing to do with the
I
funding.
need to
Oh,
interrupt
yes,
in
it
this
does.
thing.
No.
I need
I'm
to
sorry,
interrupt.
I am fiscally responsible.
Okay, but
And I want
you aren't
money.
up there as a representative of yourself. You're up there as a representative of us as a board. So when you're there, you don't speak as Laura Carr. You're there as Bonita Springs, and our opinion is not the same as yours.
I can't agree with that, Jesse. She volunteered to do this. It's her job.
No,
She
it's-
volunteered.
But that's not how it works, though.
Elected.
That's not how
I
it
was
works.
appointed.
Yes,
Well, you're appointed to represent us.
the voice of the council.
Well, I'm not she's not representing you.
Yes.
You want her to
No.
represent you, right?
No,
I
all
want
of
her
us.
to represent the
Our voice.
consensus of the
Well, there
council.
wasn't a
Oh,
consensus.
bullshit.
There
Oh,
was.
bullshit.
There was.
Point of order here. The way it works is in our administrative code, because that was also discussed in those meetings Jesse's alluded to. It says that we are to represent the view of the city council. So we need to have what is our view. I'll tell you what mine is. Mine is, I'm voting to accept the report. That's it. That's what Don Scott prefers, because he does, as soon as you start tagging on any amendments to that, like it's contingent on stopping at Estero Parkway, for example. Now you've you've made it more difficult to get funding for it. So his recommendation is we don't really vote anything other than we accept the report. We don't pick any of the alternates or anything like that.
Did we vote
No.
to accept the report? I don't remember voting.
No,
to
no.
accept the
Well, that's
any
why I'm
report.
saying we need to have a position, because we're supposed to reflect the position of.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the report and as a board have a majority voice that we're in support of the Rails for Trails project, and we voice that at the MPO.
But what is the Rails to Trail? So we're gonna go through private property?
That's not where we're at. That is
Wait,
later.
wait a minute. City attorney,
All right,
city attorney, we
well,
can't
see-
make a motion now.
This is, well, here's the issue. The vote that's coming to the MPO is not any vote that comes to city council. The city council has supported and approved resolutions in the past for the program.
Right.
Pursuant to your administrative code, the representatives of the city council, even if they were in the minority on an approved motion, their directive is to support the collective action of the council. The current collective action of the council is to support the Rails to Trails project as a whole. So the MPO will be voting on the acceptance of the study report, which is in furtherance of that program. I'm not certain that Councilwoman Carr has ever voted against the project at any level at the MPO.
Never.
No, they haven't.
So I think all that is necessary is to
There's more
reemphasize to the representatives that are on the MPO that the council's collective action is to support the project.
Well, I think the issue isn't that. It's, do you put something on that says we support it only if we don't go through the vineyards or vines or whatever you call it?
No.
That's what we're talking about.
When did we take a position supporting?
We did not, we,
When did we take a
We
position?
didn't. I
To
just,
support this?
I think,
Trails and
I'm with
rails.
you. Okay?
When?
2 councils ago.
several years ago.
We've allocated money to it.
Years ago?
Yes.
2 meetings
Two.
ago.
Five or 7 people ago. So things haven't changed in those years?
2 meetings
We
ago.
hadn't,
So I just want to clarify, the MPO is not building a trail, it is not
Correct.
acquiring real property for a trail.
Correct.
Their process has nothing to do with that issue. That issue is a city council and a Village of Estero council item only. If there are other governmental entities that want to pony up money, the process for transportation planning in the state of Florida and with the federal government is to coordinate planning dollars towards projects that are eligible for funding. So, as presented at the MPO level to this degree, the only money that is looking for is federal and state planning money to plan a trail. Not to acquire a trail, not to do anything, just the planning level stages. And I believe that Mr. Scott, when he was here, indicated that would be the extent of what they're looking at. Whether the trail goes forward in Estero is irrelevant to the city of Bonita Springs. We're not, I assume, the council is not paying for any trail beyond its boundaries.
Right.
So I just want to,
No, that's important because it's like getting caught up on the metal on the sign. That's not what we're voting on right now. What we're voting on is whether you want to move forward with it or not. And that, at the MPO, the voice for Bonita has to be the same whether anybody who's up there agrees with it or not. That's the issue. And I want to make sure everybody understands that.
And again, keeping it simple, we're supporting the idea of them finding money to make this go forward.
but that's not, that is, yes, and that is not, oh, the MPO finding
Yeah.
money, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not
That's
even
all it
what
is.
Estero
That's
does,
all it
what
is.
Estero does.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Good way to end, Chris.
do what?
So
Are we
what is,
done?
so,
Anybody else?
So Laura's still on the MPO and Fred, is that who?
no,
Yes.
right, nobody's
Okay.
trying to get her off.
Nobody's
the
trying to
MPO.
get her off. We're just asking if she's uncomfortable with our view that we support the MPO, then
Well, she can make up her own mind when
No,
she
she
gets the
can't.
information at the
No, she
meeting.
No, she can't. But that's fine. And listen, she understands. She was here. She knows how
And
this has
she's
happened.
here now.
Right? Okay, so Laura, you've seen this happen before. You don't go against the voice of the council. If you do, there's a problem. So you can do what you want to do. We'll all be watching. It's up to you.
Okay, very good.
Fair enough.
Okay, any other, council report?
sorry for my language.
I thought it
I
was
get
pretty cool.
frustrated sometimes.
Yes,
I never s-
Jamie,
I
you
never
have anything?
I do not, I'm ready.
Okay, public comment,
There? Down here.
Oh.
huh?
My turn?
I asked it.
You asked down there, Mayor.
I didn't.
Go ahead, what do you got to say?
And then we do have public comment.
I didn't get asked if I.
Just, first of all, I wanted to thank Arlene and Matt and John. I was asked to go to Imperial Harbor. They had a association meeting there. It's not really an association, but a lot of misinformation was spread amongst our community. I'm sure it's happening elsewhere, Mayor, but thanks to the staff who gave me the facts to deal with, walked in there, met with the folks for about an hour, and walked out with them saying, oh, we didn't understand, we didn't know, because they gave me the facts to go in with. Now they're looking at the city as, oh, you're not bad guys. So I asked staff if they would, a simple list for all of us on staff, what we've accomplished so far, what we're already in the process of doing, so when we're out talking to people, we can say to them, you may not think this is being addressed, but it is. Arlene said they could put that together in a short period of time. It's a thank you to them. It's a warning to us that there's still people out there who don't know what we're doing and are listening to that friend, that guy who, if I ever find that guy, I'd like to shoot him. There's always a guy that has information.
You mean
Jail,
that-
you threaten people.
not
You don't
literally.
threaten people.
Okay,
You
trying to
just
lighten
don't
it
do
up a
that.
little bit. Okay, well, we'll talk about behaviors later, Mayor. I did have an opportunity, I got invited to a gathering on Friday and met our Lieutenant Governor. Never met her before, small group of people, and what was great was we actually got to talk for 4 or 5 minutes, just the two of us. We have some mutual acquaintances. I find her to be very transparent, and she stated the fact that both the governor and herself understand what we're going through in Bonita, and we have friends up there. And it was nice to hear that from somebody look me right in the eye and say, we know what you all are going through, and we've got their support. So that's my report.
Anybody else? Public comment, here we go. Finally get to talk to the
Thanks.
boss.
Okay, my name is Joe Gallagher. I live at 10290 Indiana Street. I'm a Bonita Springs resident. Two issues I'd like to address. The first is the old library. The consideration should be the best use and not what is immediately expedient. Seniors are moving to Bonita in great numbers. A senior center is vital to address some of their unmet needs. A model similar to that used with Cafe of Life can be a viable means of funding and operation. The second is the lack of affordable housing, as we've been mentioned before. Unlike home ownership, it cannot be economically built without subsidies. Bonita provides no allowances to encourage it. Full impact fees are charged, while those for habitat are deferred in the Rosemary Park development. The vast majority of low-income rental housing uses tax credits as the largest source of funds, and those projects are for greater than 60 units. I own this 2.5 acres on Rosemary Park, will be considerably less. We hope the city makes low-income rental housing a priority. Currently, home ownership is favored in the provisions of assistance, not rental housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Ron George from Little Hickory Island, and I'm a member of the City of Bonita Springs Technology Advisory Board. And at the Technology Advisory Board's January 23rd, 2023 meeting, a motion was passed that I should appeal to the City Council to consider establishment of rapid EV charging stations in the downtown Bonita Springs area. I personally don't own an EV, and I doubt I will in my lifetime, but that's me and my choice. Last year in Florida, my understanding is that about 10% of the new car registrations were for EVs. City Council clearly desires to enhance the downtown and attract commerce and visitors to the area. It would only seem wise, therefore, to consider adding EV charging stations to the downtown area. The option for EV owners to patronize downtown businesses while they charge their vehicles would lead to a win-win for businesses, residents, and visitors to Bonita Springs. Where might these EV charging stations be located? Just making it quick, any one of the city-owned sites that are downtown would obviously be acceptable, and I think be a wise choice. Who would pay for the charging stations? There's a lot of funding, both private and government, available for rapid charging stations, and it's likely that like Electrify America or Tesla would be interested in locating chargers in the downtown area with little or no cost to the city. If the city is interested in EV charging stations, the Technology Advisory Board could do the initial legwork to start the process in motion. Please consider the obvious enhancement to the downtown area and the win-win it would bring. The vision Bonita Springs downtown of the future needs to accommodate EVs. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Any other public comment? Anything else from the council? We're adjourned.